Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice radio. So today, we are bringing you round one from the Truro League Challenge, the Xeon City Gym League Challenge. As far as I'm aware, the only gym named after an element on the periodic table. We are off. On the right, we have a lovely lady called Willow. She is playing Vespiquen Vileplume. I'm on the left. I'm getting scared. More on me in a moment. So we do see an unknown coming down straight away. We see an Acrobite coming down straight away. We have a Combee in the active. We have a Wobbuffet on the bench. And we see a level ball coming down. Now this is either going to be for an Oddish. Oh no! I was going to say an Oddish or a second Combee. But of course we do have the Stadium Forest of Giant Plants, which allows you to evolve as soon as you like. If you're a grass Pokemon, of course. We see a Floatstone going on the Combee. We see a double colourless going on the Combee. Oh, and we see a pass there. So she could have gotten an Oddish or a second Combee. Chose instead to get the Vespiquen, hoping I don't have an N to get rid of that. Now, the good news for me is that Willow did not get the turn 1 Vileplume. Had she got the turn 1 Vileplume, it would have been very bad. And you see Willow there pointing out, oh, you're having to get rid of a Versus Seeker with the first Ultra Ball. That's a bit rough. Now it is, getting rid of a Versus Seeker is never good, but I'm expecting to be trainer locked during this game, so it could be worse. Now, I can't go for a Shaman here, because the Wobbuffet's in the active, and the Wobbuffet turns off the Shaman. Turns off all abilities of non-psychic Pokemon when it is active. So I choose to go for the Zoroark here. Now, if that Zoroark gets knocked out, this is a bad play. It would have been far better here probably to go through another Zoroark or to go for something like an Yveltal. And I play a Trainer's Mail there and it fails. So I am playing Yveltal Zoroark. And this matchup for me is going to come down to whether I can get attackers rolling before I get trainer locked. Willow is playing Vespiquen Vileplume. Vileplume will trainer lock both sides of the field. Nobody can play item cards. And then she's going to be playing that Combee that Vespiquen, that does 20 damage plus 10 for each Pokemon in the discard. But it's only got 90 HP. So she's going to try and disrupt me while I try and build up attackers that can do 90 damage. And that Yveltal EX is actually pretty good along that line. So we do see an Ultra Ball coming down here, grabbing an Unknown, or an Unknown as it's actually supposed to be pronounced, but I just can't bring myself to say it in that manner. It just sounds weird. And a Sycamore, so a very brisk pace here from Willow, making it slightly awkward to commentate, but that's alright. I forgive her. Here we see an Acrobite coming down, discarding an N, and keeping the Lysander. She saw that I didn't play a supporter last turn, so she's hoping I draw nothing. Now we see a Farewell Letter from the Unknown, drawing into an Unknown, and using another Farewell Letter. Farewell Letter just allows you to discard the Unknown and draw a card. And we see a Level Ball coming down here for another Unknown. Every time an Unknown gets played, Willow gets an extra card and a Pokemon goes in the discard, meaning Vespiquen will do 10 more damage. My Zoroark is already being KO'd here, meaning the fact that I went for a Zoroark was a very, very silly play indeed. Now, bearing in mind, I already knew that Willow had the Combee with the double colourless attached. And I knew she had the Vespiquen in hand and I didn't play the N. Going for the Zoroark on my part was a silly play. I shouldn't have done it. I could have used it to go for... I mean, to be honest, I even could have just used it to grab a Shaman so that when she got retreated the Wobbuffet, which had to happen, I'd be alright. Now, the good news is I have a double colourless, so I can just use Y-Cyclone or I can use X-Ball there to get the KO. And without Battle Compressor, that discards 3 Pokemon from the deck, it's rotated out, Vespiquen Vileplume is much slower. So that means that it's going to be a little while. It's not going to be this turn that Vespiquen KOs the Yveltal. So I need another basic, but I've got a turn or two to draw into something. That Yveltal is just not getting KO'd this turn. Now, we did see her there get rid of some elements of the Vileplume line, and it looks here like she's given up on Vileplume. And there's 2 ways, and we see a single puzzle of time here, and of course, as you always do with Single Puzzle of Time, you keep it in the same order. Why would you not? Now, you can see here that Willow's not playing Shaman. What she's gone for here, and I like this build of the deck, it's a bit different. Rather than play Shaman, I'm going to play Wobbuffet. And my theory is that I'm going to set up my Trainer Lock and my Vespiquen. And if I don't set up the Trainer Lock and Vespiquen, that's okay. I'm going to use a Wobbuffet here to block you from playing anything useful while I get set up. And you've got to love that play. Now, in the old days, when we had Battle Compressor, Super Fast Shaman was the way to go. It was the only real way to play the deck. Why would you not? But now, I can see that here, that there is, going for Wobbuffet rather than Shaman is a valid strategy. And this is a deck we've got. So we see that Forest of Giant Plants coming down here. We see a second Vespiquen getting set up. I think she's got about 10 Pokemon in the discard, which means she'll be hitting for 120. So I'm not getting KO'd yet, but I know I'm going to need something. The good news is Willow played that N, so it's giving me a turn to try and get something rolling here. And in case you're wondering, yes, I am wearing a Lions jersey. Yes, I am a Lions fan. Yes, they do regularly make me sad. No, I'm not going to change my mind. So now we see an Ultra Ball coming down here. Neither of these discards is something I'm particularly comfortable with, but I've got to do something. I've got to get a Pokemon on the bench. It's got to be a basic. Lysander, and bearing in mind I've already lost a couple of Versus Seeker here. So Lysander is becoming less likely as the game wears on. Another point about the lack of Shaman in Willow's deck here, of course, is the fact that that doesn't then give up 2 prizes later on. One of the things you could do against Vespiquen and Vileplume is just try and drag up one of their bench Pokemon, the Shaman, and then get some cheeky KOs. Well, that's not an issue if you're not playing the Shaman. And we saw here that she didn't get the Vileplume out, but she did draw a lot with her Acrobikes and her Trainer's Mail, so certainly a different version of the deck. Now, we do see a Faded Town coming down from myself here. I know that Willow's not playing any Mega Pokemon. I just wanted to get rid of that Forest of Giant Plants. I want to try and slow her down. So I get a second Yveltal EX on the bench with a double colourless energy, and I get just a regular Yveltal there as well. Now I like Yveltal EX here to a degree. I like Yveltal EX because you do 90 damage, which is enough to KO a Vespiquen, and you can, if you do it with Y-Cyclone, you then switch the energy back onto your bench. Although with X-Ball you only need 2 energy to do 100 damage and get the KO. But it's only good for as long as Vespiquen is not getting one-hit KOs. As soon as Vespiquen goes and gets one-hit KOs, then you're on hiding to nothing, so to speak. Because all that's happening then is that your opponent is taking 2 prizes for every one of yours. Not to mention that Vespiquen works with a double colourless energy, 1 attachment, whereas you need a dark and a double colourless, or a dark and a dark, 2 energy attachments. So, we do see another Vespiquen coming here, and we do get the KO on the Yveltal. And I'm just sticking up the Yveltal here, and it looks like I'm going to be able to get the KO. Now, the good news for me here is that I'm going to be able to knock out the last Vespiquen. Now, there's only so many double colourless in Willow's deck, only 4 of them, and because she plays an item lock deck with Vileplume, you would assume she's not playing Special Charge, the Pokemon that allows you to... they're not playing Special Charge, which allows you to grab 2 Special Energy and shuffle them from your discard pile back into your deck. And she doesn't have a Forest of Giant Plants in play. So I am hoping here... Oh, and there's a Parallel City that I can use just off a Trainer's Mail in case she puts down another Forest of Giant Plants. But also, it's a two-sided stadium. One side reduces bench size to 3. The other side reduces damage done by various types, including grass, by 20. So I've put it down so that Willow's grass Pokemon are doing 20 less damage to mine, meaning 2 more Pokemon in the discard to get the KO. That seems alright by me, and I don't need a huge bench at this stage, so I don't mind. One of the reasons I'm playing Parallel City in this deck is so that I can discard my Shaman if I need to. I can play it on myself, lower my bench space to 3, and discard the Shaman I've got on the bench. It's not an issue here. Now, weirdly, although I've only taken a single prize, and I'm down by 2 prizes, I'm feeling pretty good about my chances at this stage. Because there are certain ways, to win the Pokemon Trading Card Game, you knock out all of your opponent's Pokemon, or you take 6 prizes. Or you make it so your opponent can't take a prize. Can't draw a card at the beginning of their turn. Now, I changed my mind there. I was going to go Shaman. I instead went Zorua. I feel alright with this. But even though this isn't going to win me the game in a very explicit I've taken 6 prizes fashion, this is going to put me in a position in this game where I'm going to feel very comfortable about my chances of winning. Willow now only has a Wobbuffet out. She is going to need, if she wants to try and get a meaningful attack off, she's going to need a Combee, a Forest of Giant Plants, a Vespiquen, and a double colourless energy. If she doesn't have all 4 of those cards, and she doesn't, and she concedes the game despite being ahead, and you see there there just wasn't much good in her hand at all. And this is one of the problems with, and I think she might have had, was it 2 Vespiquen prized? Either way, she didn't have the cards she needed to finish out this game. And this is one of the problems with this Vespiquen Vileplume deck. You run into a situation sometimes where you just have nothing. We saw there was an official Pokemon stream we saw. And what happened in the stream was we saw, and this was something like top 4. It might have been US Nationals or high-level regionals. Or it was either, I think it was top 8 or top 4 of US Nationals. And we saw a Vespiquen Vileplume player. And they went for a really long first turn where they got set up, but they never got the float stone on their Vileplume. And they discarded their own EAZ, although AZ has since rotated. And the opponent, all he did was play 1 Lysander to bring the Vileplume into the active, and the Vileplume Vespiquen player just scooped right away, because they had no way of getting it in the active. You're also generally playing a 4-4 Vespiquen line, 4 double colourless, and because you're trainer locking or item locking, you're not really playing cards like Super Rod or Revitalizer to get these Pokemon back. So now you're in a situation, and I'm not really, in this matchup, I'm not really thinking about taking 6 prizes. That's not really what I'm going for. What I'm thinking about is trying to make sure I run her out of attackers. That is my goal. Taking out the Vespiquen. And I don't mind being behind by a couple prizes if I can take out the Vespiquen. Because when they're down, I'm feeling really quite good about my chances of winning the game. So for me here, it's all about trying to set up attackers. In the early game, Yveltal EX will be lovely. And if Willow benches enough bench Pokemon, 3 she'll need to bench. If she's got 3 bench Pokemon, then my Zoroark will be able to get a 1-hit KO on the Vespiquen, and will have the added bonus of only giving up 1 prize if there is a return knockout. So this game purely comes down to the first couple turns. Now, I didn't have the best of starts last game. You saw I only really got going after Willow played the N. There's an argument that she shouldn't have played the N, but then again, I misplayed on the Ultra Ball when I clearly should have gone for a Shaman. Now, I'm not entirely sure 1 card is a proper cut. I don't know. I've been told different reports. But I'm having a chat with Willow there and just saying, look, I cut it again. Do you mind? If you mind, feel free to give it a shuffle or a cut. Willow's a lovely person. She's just saying, I don't care, man. Just get on with the game. So we are good. That's what that discussion was. So now I'm starting off with a Fright Night Yveltal. I've got that ability that stops tools taking an effect, But of course that's irrelevant because Wobbuffet is in the active, and when Wobbuffet's in the active, he turns off all the abilities of non-psychic Pokemon, so essentially Yveltal has no ability here. We see a Trainer's Mail, which I believe you got her an Ultra Ball, and we see an Ultra Ball coming down here. Now in the previous game, Willow gave up on the Vileplume, and it didn't go so well in the end. I built up my attackers and I got going. So the question is she going to get it this turn? And she doesn't get the turn 1 Vileplume. She's got an Oddish, she's got a Gloom, Wobbuffet in the active, and off we go. And, you know, you can argue about the list all you like. There's a conscious decision here. I don't want to play Shaymin. I want to play Wobbuffet to try and slow my opponent down. You can argue about it all you like, but this isn't an, oh, I'm not playing Shaymin, Octillery's better. Willow has gone for a conscious. I think this is the way to go. I've lost some speed with Battle Compressor rotating out. I don't think this deck works in the same way as it did before, so a slower, more disruptive build with Wobbuffet is probably the way to go. So, here I've got an Yveltal on the bench, I've got the Fright Knight in the active. I played an Ultra Ball getting rid of an N and a Versus Seeker, so I must have something in hand, possibly a Sycamore. There we go, it is a Sycamore. And you can see I've got a Parallel City. I'm wondering whether to play it, because on the one hand, I want to lower her damage output by 20, but on the other hand, I don't want to limit my bench on the first turn of the game. And in the end, that wins out. I don't want to limit I want to lower her output, but I can't on turn 1 limit my bench. I want to get set up. If I've already got a full bench, then I can play it and just get rid of a couple useless cards. So I've got a couple Zoroarks down, I get a Floatstone on one, I get a double colourless on the other, and I'm feeling quite good. Reason for that, very simply, if Willow here is able to get set up, and it's very unlikely, but if she does, and then she were to play a Lysander, well, if I've got the Floatstone and double colourless both on the same Zoroark, then that's clearly the one to go for and I lose everything. Whereas in the incredibly unlikely event that she did get a KO with a Lysander there, she could either get rid of my energy, in which case I've still got a Zoroark with a Floatstone so I can stand in and retreat when I get a Zoroark, or she gets rid of that, but then I keep the energy. So conscious decision there to make sure it's not all so easy. Now we see the Forest of Giant Plants come down. There is a Vileplume, but of course, she's got a Wobbuffet in the active. And this is the other brilliant thing about playing Wobbuffet in this deck. Right now, Wobbuffet turns off Vileplume's ability. So, now, Willow can play trainers. Now, here's the problem. She didn't get the Combee or Vespiquen. And this is where it backfires, because she doesn't have a Floatstone on the Vileplume. And now that the Vileplume is in the active, she can't put a Floatstone on, because Wobbuffet's not active, Vileplume is turned on. And I'm just thinking I'm having a little bit of a silly moment. I'm saying, hang on a second, how did you retreat with the Wobbuffet? This is me just being, this is Sunday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sunday morning, I'm looking forward to the NFL later. I'm saying, hang on a second, how did you retreat the Wobbuffet if Yveltal's ability turns off the Floatstone? And Willow's going, no, Wobbuffet's ability turns off Yveltal's ability, which turns on the Floatstone. You'll notice I've also put a tool on the Yveltal. This is round 1 on a Sunday morning, and quite frankly, I'm thinking too much about the NFL. Plus, I won game 1. Maybe I'm getting a bit complacent. Maybe I was just putting cards down so I could draw more with Shaymin. I don't know. To be honest, there is an argument here that if I'm going to be trainer locked, as I am, just dump all your cards. So to be honest, I don't think putting the tool on the Yveltal is necessarily a misplay, because, you know what? Firstly, Wobbuffet might turn it off, turn the ability off and the tool on. And secondly, you know what? I don't want those cards in my hand if I'm going to be trainer locked. Now here's the beautiful thing. Free Sycamore. All in one go. That's all 4 Sycamore gone. See an Umbreon and Energy there as well. I've got time now, and this makes me very happy. Willow can't play a Floatstone on the Vileplume, because she's trainer locked herself as well. And AZ has rotated from the format. So what I'm doing here is I'm using stand-in with Zoroark and then retreating. I can't retreat because the Floatstone does nothing on the Yveltal. But I can stand in with Zoroark and then retreat. And now I'm just going to pick away. 130 HP on the Vileplume, so I can have 4 turns, and I know she's not getting anything going here. Now, the danger is that by giving her these turns, she gets enough Pokemon in the discard that she can go ahead and then get 1-hit KOs on the Yveltal EXs. So, what I need here is I need to take a cheeky prize off the Vileplume. We see an N coming down from Willow. So I want to get a cheeky prize on the Vileplume. But what I don't want to do is give her enough time to get 15 Pokemon in the discard, which will allow her to get a 1-hit KO on the Yveltal. But she hasn't got set up here. She is trainer locked, and she's clearly playing a trainer heavy deck. Trainer heavy plus Wobbuffet means she's, and there we see just the Combee Vespiquen double colorless. It means that she is less bothered by Wobbuffet than we are. She's got a trainer-heavy deck which relies on it. But when the Vileplume comes out, she is hurt by it as much as we are, maybe more so. So here, I'm just going to chip away. I'm going to hope she doesn't get enough Pokemon in the discard. And then if she benches 3 Pokemon, I can use the Zoroark. If she doesn't, then I can use a Yveltal EX. Oh, and I've even got the break coming down here. Yay, Zoroark break in round 1. That's pretty cool. I like that. That makes me happy. Now, even if she does get the KO on the Zoroark as soon as the Yveltal EX, as soon as it goes into the active, I'm not so worried. I get a KO on the Vileplume, then I get a KO with the Yveltal, and then she KOs the Yveltal EX. So you know what? I'm trading 2 prizes for 2 prizes. I can live with that. And then we can go ahead with the Zoroarks and try and get some prizes with them. The Fright Night Yveltal, unfortunately, 60 to the active, 60 to a bench DX. Usually, against Vespiquen Vileplume, this could actually be a nice play. 60 to the active, 60 to a Shaman on the bench, 3 prizes in 2 attacks, sounds good to me. Another reason, now I'm not saying that the Shamanless build is better. If you want my honest opinion, I'd rather play the Shaman build. But we're not watching the Shaman build here. So what I'm doing is giving you the alternate view. And not playing Shaman means Fright Night Yveltal's a lot worse. It means you can play Wobbuffet. So, you know, pros and cons. And I love the Wobbuffet play where you can have Wobbuffet in the active with a Floatstone, turn on all of your trainers, then retreat into an attacker, turning trainers off while you go. So I finally get the KO on the Vileplume, and now it is up to Willow. We've both got trainers again, and this is a crucial turn. It's not really about KOing the Yveltal. It is about trying to... I mean, what she really needs here is 3 of these. We see a double level ball coming down. What she wants is a bench of 3 Vespiquen, therefore, and a KO. Then she gets the KO. I get a KO on Vespiquen. She hopefully KOs the Yveltal, and she's left with 2 benched Pokemon, meaning that I can't get a return KO with Zoroark. At this stage in the game, if she's got enough bench Pokemon that I can get KOs with Zoroark, then this whole thing essentially turns into a moot point, because I'm going to win the game at that stage. Now we see a double puzzle of time coming down here. Any 2 cards from her discard. She's going for an unknown and an N, so she can draw a card and then play the N. Although... and a second unknown comes down here. Looks like she's had to go and get rid of a Vespiquen in the process. And this is the right way round. She plays the N before the unknown. This is the way you do it, ladies and gentlemen. What you don't want to do is play the unknown and draw, like a Vespiquen, but not a Combee, and then have to N it back in. You put the unknown down, then you play the N, then you can use the cards you get from the N and the 2 unknown to do as best as you can. And this is actually going very well for her. She gets the Oddish, she gets the Gloom. If she's got a Vileplume in play, she can actually get the Trainer Lock on, and she's got the 2 Vespiquen, both with double colorless energy attached. It doesn't look like she's got the Vileplume though, which is going to hurt. Can she drop it down? Oh, she can't, unfortunately. This is upsetting. And I just put 100 damage on the Vespiquen, which is clearly a stupid thing to do. That 100 damage should clearly be on the Yveltal, not on the Vespiquen. I do worry, and I assure you I woke up in later rounds, but there is a part of me here that's just thinking, you know what, maybe I haven't had enough sleep. Maybe I'm too fixated. Spoiler alert, the Lions lost this particular week in a, wow, it was a gutless first half against the Packers, and then they kind of made a comeback which fell short. Hey-ho, these things happen. Now, you see that I actually did play my second Parallel City, dropping the damage output by 20, while being able to get rid of my Fright Night Yveltal, because without Shaman on Willow's side of the board, it doesn't really do anything for me. And now I see free bench Pokemon, I think 100 damage with Zoroark, and now I am rolling. I want to get the KO with Zoroark here. And you can see I've got another Zoroark on the bench ready to go. And I've even got an Yveltal on the bench, which I could, if I wish, attach 2 more energy, at least one of them dark, and get a KO that way because it does 100 damage. And once again, I'm starting to feel good about my chances. Oh, and we see a Twins coming down. Search your deck for any 2 cards. There comes a Vileplume, and there comes an Unknown. But here's the thing. She needs another Vespiquen. Because all that's going to happen right now is I'm going to get the KO with a Yveltal EX, and then there's going to be no Vespiquen on her side of the field. And I don't think she's playing Super Rod or Revitalizer here. And we see another I think that's all 4 Vespiquen now used. So I don't think there's anything that's going to happen here. I think she's down to her last Vespiquen, and that Vespiquen is going to fall to the Yveltal here. So unfortunately, I love the idea here, and I think this is a very interesting deck design from Willow. I like the idea of going, right, Battle Compressor's gone, so let's get Wobbuffet, not play Shaman. I don't have easy EX prizes for my opponent to take. I can slow them down with Wobbuffet. I can make a trainer-heavy deck, because what I can also do there is put the Wobbuffet in the active, turn off the Vileplume, and then start playing my trainers again. Now, it does seem here like she has played the Vespiquen and she's still playing trainers, which is a little bit silly. I don't think she's supposed to be doing this right now. I don't know how we both missed this, because unless she's played a Hex Maniac, which I don't think she has, I could be wrong, but unless she's played a Hex Maniac that I missed, she shouldn't be playing trainers. It's a moot point at this stage, and rightly or wrongly, judge me as you will, I'm not really worried at the moment, because all that I'm thinking is, I've got the KO. And she's out of Vespiquen, so it doesn't really matter what she does. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see any way back from her here. I know, now had she played a Super Rod, maybe I would have gone, hang on a second. But as it stands at the moment, I know where I'm going. Now, I'm still playing the game, I'm still setting up, I'm still preparing just in case. I want to make sure nothing can go wrong here, so I'm still playing out the game, because you never know. She might end up putting Wobbuffet in the active, and then going, Revitalizer, Combi Vespiquen, double colourless, and getting the KO. So, although I'm sitting here saying I'm pretty sure I've got the game sewn up, as mean as it might seem, I've got to keep playing this game, because you never know what your opponent's going to drop. And if the game is that sewn up to the point where it's looking mean, you know what? Your opponent can just concede the game if your opponent thinks you've got the game sewn up. So as far as I'm concerned, you keep playing right till the end here. So, here, I don't know. I mean, if I've got 7 Pokemon in the discard, I can actually use Foul Play to copy Bee Revenge and get the KO. I must not have, although I think I'm going to check just for a second. I don't think I do, to be honest. So I can get the KO here with Y-Cyclone, and right away, and that's why she was discarding the Vespiquen. There were 2 Combi in the discard pile. This makes perfect sense. So, I do hope you enjoyed that. You got to see my Yveltal Vespiquen deck. You got to see... an Yveltal Zoroark deck. You got to see an interesting post-rotation build of Vespiquen Vileplume, which wasn't all that successful, but I thought it's a kind of video where I'm assuming some of you watching this are going to look at that and go, hey... that looks like it could be an idea. You never know. Thank you to Paul and all at Xeon City Gym for allowing me to record. Thank you to Willow for agreeing to be on the stream. I don't like recording myself, but it was round 1 and last time the camera didn't work, so I figured I needed to be on round 1 just to make sure the recording worked this time, because we lost a whole league challenge worth of material because the camera wasn't working. So thank you very much all for watching. You know the deal. Put a comment down below, click like, click subscribe, and look after yourselves until next time. Oh yeah, and follow me on Twitter @TheWassy. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCGRadio.